Whenever life gives me a challenge or a difficulty, I always like to remind myself that life happens for me, not to me. And I've had this saying to myself since I was a little kid. Way before I owned a multi-million-dollar business, way before I was a business owner, way before I was a Bain Consultant, way before I was even in college, I always had the saying growing up. It all started with my family. When my family first immigrated to the US, they were political refugees from Vietnam. And between the 5 of them, they had to figure out how to feed themselves with less than $200. But not only that was when they arrived in the US as political refugees, they had been farmers. And in fact, none of my family members went to college, and some of them didn't even finish high school. And so to get by, my family would do whatever it took, whether it was taking night shifts cleaning, working at the factories, whatever it took to make sure that we had some income going in. And as a result of that, we didn't have much money to go around. I remember, for example, there were times when we didn't have enough money to pay the water bills. I remember some days, for example, when I would wake up and I would try to turn on the light switch and nothing would turn on because, well, we didn't have money to pay the electricity bill. So I would go to school in the same clothes I wore the day before, hungry, I was cold. That was life. And I remember how much I hated that feeling of being poor. So when I was in 3rd grade, I had a teacher who asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, well, I want to help my family not be poor. And she turned to me and she said, how are you going to do that? I was like, well, you're the teacher. You tell me, how do I do that? And she said, well, you can go to college. I said, well, what's the best colleges in the world? And she gave me one, which was Harvard. I didn't know what Harvard was. I didn't know where it was. I just knew that, okay, well, if my 3rd grade teacher said that if I can get into Harvard, that it would help my family not be poor, I'm going to dedicate my life towards that. And that became my focus growing up. It wasn't the easiest path. In fact, the community I grew up in, a lot of us were immigrants. A lot of people didn't go to high school. A lot of people in the community were making minimum wage, didn't go to college. Some didn't even finish high school. And that was the type of community we grew up in. There wasn't exactly a blueprint for how to make it to a place like Harvard. In fact, my school system was called the worst school system in the US. When I went to school, the teachers and the counselors and administration, they were too busy trying to break up fight, trying to keep people from going to jail, trying to stop dropout rates, teenage pregnancy, that there wasn't much time for anything else. And so at the time, there was a lot of challenges. And that's when I came across the saying that you can think that life happens to you or you can think life happens for you, and that there's some sort of greater purpose to this. And you don't have to be religious to believe that, but just the idea that you can view everything in your life as an obstacle, or you can try to view everything as an opportunity. I knew I couldn't figure it out, and my counselors didn't know how to figure this out. And so what I did was I went on the websites and made a list of all the schools I wanted to apply to, the Harvards, the Yales, the Stanfords. And it wasn't like I had the best SAT scores, the best essay. In fact, I probably below average on all those. So what I would do is I would go online, I would go to all these websites. For example, for Harvard, they had a newspaper called the Harvard Crimson. For Yale, it was the Yale Daily News, these student publications. And I would just read through the online publications and I would figure out, well, who were my favorite writers? Who just was so eloquent? Who was really good? And I would just, at the bottom of their article, they would always include their email. So I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. Let me just email them. And so I would email them asking for feedback on my essays. I would ask them questions about how did they get into Yale? How did they get into Stanford? How did they get into Princeton? And I just wanted to have a blueprint. And when they started getting responses back, I knew exactly what I needed to do to improve my SAT scores, which AP classes to take. Well, my high school didn't offer APs, but I found a way around that, and a couple other items. And it was just like, for the first time, I felt like there was an opportunity for me to actually do something. And I would do this. For example, if someone recommended that I read a certain book to prepare for the SATs, I would go get the book. Even if it meant that I didn't have a car and I would have to walk 3 miles one way to go get this book from my library. But eventually, it all paid off, and I did get full scholarships to both Harvard and Yale. I ended up choosing Yale, but I'll save that story for another time. But even when I got to Yale, I didn't feel like I fit in. I remember, for example, when I first arrived on campus, and the first night we were all there's a freshman dinner that they host. I remember at my table, one of the girls there asked, well, what do you want to do after Yale? And I remember as people went around in our table, they just started saying jobs that, to show you how ignorant I was here, was, for example, one person said they wanted to be a banker on Wall Street. And I thought, why do you want to be a banker? I know a bunch of friends of mine who dropped out of high school and they're working as bank tellers in our local community. I'm pretty sure you don't have to go to Yale to do that. And so that's how I obviously didn't say that out loud, but that was going on in my head. And while other people were preparing for their careers, trying to figure out how to get jobs at Google, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and all these other firms, I didn't have a plan. I pretty much just did whatever I wanted to do. If it meant working at a startup one summer, a nonprofit another summer, I would just do whatever it was that interested me. But luckily, along the way, I met some amazing mentors, the people who founded the organizations that I would intern at. And at the end of my junior summer, when I was thinking about what to do after I graduated, my mentors individually, I just set up a call one-on-one with them. They all said, well, Davis, given your background, you probably should want to go into management consulting. It's gonna build out some skills, but more importantly, it's gonna show you what's possible, and you're gonna learn a ton, make a ton of money, but also at the same time, you're gonna build a network that's gonna help you for the rest of your career and your life. And at the time, I didn't know what management consulting was. In fact, I had to Wikipedia it as I was talking on the phone with my mentors. I'm like, what is this? And the more I dug into it, the more I realized, okay, this is a pretty cool career. I actually want to be a management consultant. The problem was that when I went on my school website, I realized that the deadlines for applying were in 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to figure everything out. And I didn't know anyone who was working in consulting at the time. And so I did what I did when I was trying to go into college, which was I basically just emailed like 40 people working at the firms I wanted to apply to try to figure out how to build that roadmap. Was it the most efficient use of my time? No. Looking back, there was a better way for me to do that. But from these 40 emails, I actually got some responses back and it built a roadmap. But I'll save that for another video for another time about that process, how I thought about it, and the results that came from it. But ultimately, when I got these responses back, I could put them all together and I could start to see, similar to when I was trying to get into Yale and Harvard, a roadmap for how to get into firms like McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, or Bain. And I built a plan for myself that within 3 weeks, I would land these offers, and I did. And this time, I ended up choosing Bain to start my career. At Bain, I just loved it. I just felt like I belonged. It was everything that my mentors told me. Besides getting paid over $100,000 for being 21 years old, having this network of all these executives, Bain alums, and all the mentorship that I would get at the firm, that's what I did to start off my career. And eventually though, I did leave Bain because I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. So I joined a Silicon Valley startup, and eventually that would lead me to becoming a business owner. And today I own multiple businesses. One of them, interestingly enough, helps people get jobs in management consulting, called My Consulting Offer, by helping them get interviews and help them pass interviews. But I never forgot about the roots. Like within My Consulting Offer and all the businesses that I work on, I care about two things. One is I care about the impact that we're having on people's lives. For example, getting them the outcome that they came to. But also second, a lot of profits that come from these businesses, I actually end up donating. So there's a lot of partnerships that we have with organizations that really helped me. For example, the reason why I was able to go to Yale and to be able to have a full scholarship was because of an organization called QuestBridge. So we partner with QuestBridge today. And there are other organizations as well. Khan Academy was a huge way for me to learn how to prepare for these exams when my school didn't offer a course. So Khan Academy is another partner. And so today I'm lucky that my family, they have enough money to pay the bills. They're not living in mansions or private jets or anything like that, but at least I know that my family is able to afford rent. They're able to have food on the counter every single night. But beyond that, I realized that the best use that I've had for money is to be able to impact other people's lives. And so that's my story there, which is, and I realized looking backwards, is every step of the way, it was because of viewing life as opportunities versus as obstacles. That was a stepping stone to where I am today. I couldn't see that my fight to get into university would eventually help me build up the skills and build up the mentality to eventually fight for a job in management consulting. And I didn't realize that management consulting would eventually lead me to being a business owner. And being a business owner didn't lead to me, well, supporting my family, but also making a global impact. So those are some of the things that I've learned along the way. But I realized if I had viewed life as a challenge every single way versus as an opportunity, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And I'm not immune to that. Like, there's just so many challenges that you face every single day, and you can view life as, again, challenge, or you can view it as an opportunity. And I like to view things as an opportunity. That allowed me to be who I am today. So I just wanted to share my story in case it helps anyone, inspires anyone, or motivates you to, no matter where you are in your life, because life can be tough sometimes. There could be challenges, obstacles, no matter what happens. Like some days I wake up and I feel like, oh wow, life's amazing. And other days I'm like, oh, I just don't want to get out of bed. I hope my story inspires or motivates you in some way. And if you are interested in finding out more about, for example, David, you talked about management consulting. What exactly is that? And how do I get a job in management consulting? What's Bain and all of that? There's actually a presentation that I wish existed when I was a student applying to consulting. But what I'll do is I'll link to that presentation below. It's free. You can just check it out if you are interested in management consulting. All right, that's my story, and I'll see you in the